Welcome, Africa, to The Grind. This series is designed to get you thinking, get you moving, and keep you inspired. Today's masterclass will focus on the 8 fundamentals of procurement. I'm Tarryn Norris, and this is my masterclass. Well, let's get started, guys. The first fundamental we need to discuss today is buying. What does this actually mean in your world? You need to buy the right product at the right time, the right place, the right quality, the right quantity, and the right price. So let's unpack that a little. So let us buy at the right time. What does that actually mean? That means that you need to secure the delivery of your goods at the right time to meet the demand. That means you need to ensure that your demand management and your supply management is up to standard. What would happen if this didn't actually take place? So basically what we're trying to say is, if your goods are too late, you could create bottlenecks in your procurement. And if your goods are too early, you could have undue risks and obviously costs for keeping that inventory in stock while you wait for your demand. Next up, let's look at the right place. That means your goods need to be delivered to the exact delivery point, packaged and transported in such a way that secure their safe arrival and that your goods actually arrive in a good condition. If this does not happen, if your goods end up at the wrong place, then this will result in unnecessary delays and that could affect your customer. This could also result in unnecessary transport and handling. It could also result in contaminated or stolen goods whilst in transit. The next item is buy the right quality. Now that means a satisfactory quality as fit for purpose, and it must meet your customer's needs. So you need to obviously have it exact to the specification of the requirements and the quality standards. What happens in the event of it not meeting that quality is that you could possibly damage some of your machinery. You could have defective products that end up by the customer. So you have lots of recalls. You're going to have lots of returns. So it's really important that you have the right quality of goods. Next up, we talk about the right quantity. So this really has to do with your demand. So you need sufficient quantities to meet your actual demand. So there should be no excess stock holding, as this incurs costs. You should always have sufficient amount of stock. You should also make sure that you don't have any stock outs. So there's no bottlenecks in your processes, in your production process. There's no idle time, etc. So it's really important that you ensure that the right quantity is always on hand to meet your demand. Lastly, we talk about the right price. The right price meaning that it needs to be fair, competitive, affordable, and it should actually try and minimize your costs as much as possible. If the price, for whatever reason, is not right, you then run the risks of having suppliers just then charging whatever they want for the cost. You also will find that your materials and supply costs will rise. So it's very important that you understand this concept of buying at the right time, the place, the quality, the quantity, and the price. The next fundamental is one of my absolute favorites, purely because I love negotiating. I love it so much that I actually taught my kids how to negotiate, and it actually doesn't work in my favor because sometimes I lose those negotiations. So what do I mean when I say negotiate everything? I literally mean negotiate everything. So this means that we should never make the error of only negotiating on price. I see a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners who think they've done a great negotiation once they've got a certain discount. Guys, there's more to a negotiation than a discount. You can negotiate your contract on items like price, the value for money, delivery, payment terms, after-sale services, maintenance agreements, quality, lifetime cost of a product or service. There's a whole host of things you can actually do your negotiation on. One thing you must be clear on is what you're willing to give in order to get. You need to understand the market. You need to understand the market players. You need to make sure that you understand what alternatives are available so you can actually negotiate for the right things. You also need to acquire the skill. So a lot of people think, well, it's a procurement skill. It's actually a skill you need to acquire as a business owner in general, because not only are you dealing with suppliers on your products and your services, but you're also dealing with clients, big corporates, government. So you need to be aware of how to negotiate, how to hone those skills, so it's actually to your benefit at the end of the day. If you do not have these skills, I strongly suggest you then go out and get a resource that actually knows how to negotiate, because it's very important that you have that level of skill within your business. What is very important when you negotiate, please make sure that whatever you've negotiated at some point ends up in a contract, so there's no confusion around what you were negotiating for, what are the terms, what are the price, and what are the service level agreements. It's very important that all of that then rests in a contract at the end of the day. The next fundamental is manage your supply chain. Now, I know the minute somebody says supply chain, we all get very excited or very scared because it seems like a very complicated thing. Yes, it is complicated, but it's also simple. So there are instances where it can be very complicated. It just depends on the business and the products and the technicality around the lines of products, etc. It does get complicated, but if you're running a simple operation, you've got to keep it as simple as possible. So what is a supply chain? A supply chain basically is the systems and steps in place to move a product from a supplier to a buyer. You always just need to be clear, and you need to understand your supply chain end to end. You need to be able to work with the suppliers within your supply chain in order to limit waste and reduce costs. You must be able to effectively communicate with your suppliers, and you must continuously evaluate your suppliers, evaluate the value, evaluate the performance within your supply chain, just to ensure that you are obviously keeping an eye on your costs, keeping an eye on the effectiveness of your supply chain, and obviously the delivery to your customer at the end of the day. I always tell my clients, you should always try your best to own your supply chain, but that's a conversation for a whole other day and probably a whole new masterclass on its own. The next fundamental that we want to talk about is cost control. So cost control is an issue for all business owners. We all need to be aware of the cost in our business. If you are not aware of the cost in your business, I strongly suggest that you start getting to grips with it. What's important here is to understand the numbers. So if you are producing a product, you need to understand all the numbers, what goes into it, what is the cost of the raw materials, what is the cost of the distribution, how much does logistics cost you, and. So it's very important that you understand your direct costs in your business, your indirect costs, and also spend your money wisely. Spend your money wisely. Some of us have limited funds, so we need to be very clever and smart about how we spend our money. We need to be able to be in a position to collaborate with your suppliers to reduce costs. That's very important. To reduce waste in your business, because you don't want to have the extra burden or the extra cost of wastage. But also, just having said that, in managing your costs, particularly with your suppliers, you don't exactly want to be mean. You don't want to squeeze them for every last penny, because then nobody will want to actually work with you. You actually want to work with them and actually run a lean operation that actually benefits you as well as the suppliers in your supply chain. The next fundamental we're going to discuss now is what I call be proactive. So I know for a fact, having gone through COVID now and still going through COVID, that a lot of businesses that run on like very strict and structured processes battled quite a bit when we had the pandemic. So it's very important that we discuss this matter of being proactive. So I always say preparation meets opportunity. And it's a very important thing, because in your business, particularly when you're dealing with a lot of products, you need to plan, you need to be able to forecast, you need to be able to understand exactly what your supplier and your customer plans are. Your understanding of your supply and demand is very critical. But having said that, we have gone through a pandemic and are still in a pandemic. We cannot be rigid when it comes to our planning. Yes, planning is very, very, very important, but we cannot be rigid. You need to be agile. The minute there are factors that affect your production, affect your product, etc., you need to be able to maneuver or move or change when the issue arises. So guys, please do not be rigid. Please do your planning. I know for us entrepreneurs and small businesses, I find that there's always two sides of the spectrum. There's people that are extreme planners and they are rigid, and then there's those guys who just don't plan at all. So you need to find a healthy balance in order to get this right. But you, at the end of the day, need to stay in charge of your business, need to stay in charge of your value creation as well as your delivery. Number 6 is one of my absolute favorites. It's contract, 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 contract. I know when you say contracts, everybody gets scared because not all of us are legal eagles, but contracts are very, very important in your business. Why do I say so? Well, if you ignore some form of contracting or all your contracting, it could actually land your business in some hot water, or it could actually close your doors. So you need to have contracts. Now, I'm not saying if you buy pens from Joe Soap down the road that you need to have a contract in place with him. You need to apply, obviously, common sense as to what you need to contract. However, if you have long-term commitments, if you have unique procurement, if you have sensitive intellectual property, IP or software, you need to be able to put that into a contract. If you have high risk products or high risk delivery or high risk services, you need to have that into contracts. Service level agreements, SLAs, performance standards are very important to be in a contract. If for whatever reason things go wrong, you need to have something that clearly stipulates what needs to happen, by who, when, how, what price, and that needs to be able to cover you as a business. So please don't shy away from contracting, particularly if it's unique procurement or if it's products that is your intellectual property. I know it's tedious. I know sometimes you read a contract and you just don't understand what is going on exactly. Please, please contract. If you cannot do this yourself, please get legal aid, go to a legal clinic, employ a lawyer if it's affordable in your business, or get a friend to help you if that's the case. You could always just agree and negotiate a rate with that person. But please do not take this lightly. It's so important. It can literally close your doors as a small business owner. The seventh fundamental I'd like to discuss today is around procurement techniques. Now, I'm talking to you as a business owner, and this masterclass is really not directed at procurement people. It's more to give you a fair idea how to have a handle on your procurement as an entrepreneur or small business owner. Now, there are procurement techniques that are available for you as a business owner. Now, I'm not saying go and do the biggest research on everything and try and understand it as a procurement professional. All I'm saying is that you need to obviously look at what works for you and what works for your business. So what does this actually mean? So there's a whole host of procurement techniques that are out, that are available for business owners like yourself. For example, the Japanese technique of just in time. So it's called JIT. This means you will buy the right quantities just in time to meet your demand. So why is this technique important, particularly when you are dealing with products? It's important because what it does is that it makes sure that you do not create waste. It makes sure that you have the right products in place, you have the right economic quantities to meet your demand. It will save you money in stock and inventory carrying costs, such as warehousing, insurance, financing, etc. That is important for us because obviously we want to contain our costs all the time. So you need to employ techniques like this in order to assist you in your business, to maintain your costs, to make sure that you are aware of all your risks, etc. The last fundamental and my absolute favorite, I wasn't sure if I needed to put this first or last, but I'm actually glad that I've left it last. Common sense. Wow, I have a lot to say about common sense. But my favorite things that I normally say is that common sense is not common, and common sense is sometimes a superpower. So why should we really apply common sense? Well, like I said before, we are business owners and not procurement professionals. So I am a procurement professional, and I have been I have gained the knowledge and the skills and the experience in the procurement world, but the average business owner and entrepreneur is not a procurement person. So we've got to employ things like common sense. So what does that mean? That really means just make smart decisions. Don't ever feel pressurized to make decisions around purchases because some salesperson has come up with a discount structure or has come up with a new fancy plan for you to get additional stock, etc., for your product. No, you need to stop. You need to assess if this is exactly what your business needs before you actually make that decision. Now, I'll give you a little tip about salespeople. I love them dearly. The world is full of them, and obviously they do add to the world going round. But the salespeople know everything about you. They know everything. They know what you like, what you don't like. They know how you make decisions. They even know if you're going to make a decision. They even know on which day to come to you in order to make a quick decision. That is their business. It's their business to know. It's your business to think of your business first and foremost. If you have a decision to make, I urge you to actually sleep on it, to look at the factors that affect that decision, to go and get alternative prices, to go and understand alternative demands or alternative goods or alternative pricing structures. Go and do your homework. Don't just take one person's word for it. A salesperson can come and give you a massive discount on something purely because they're trying to get rid of stock. So if you then think that you've got the greatest deal, they're just getting rid of their old stock. They've got new stock coming in. You then will sit with the burden of having that stock sit at your warehouse at your cost. So you really need to always think of your business needs first, and you really need to act smartly all the time. So please apply your common sense. We've all got it. That's why we're in business, because we've got some level of common sense that we obviously have in our day-to-day. And that's it for today, guys. Thank you for being part of this masterclass series. It's been really amazing. There is much, much more to come. We've got a beautiful lineup of some very interesting masterclasses coming up. Remember, it's every second Monday. So we will advertise and have that out. Don't forget to please go and follow us on all our social media platforms. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the notification button on our YouTube channel so you can get notifications of when the masterclasses are going to be held. And yes, always remember that you need to stay on your grind. Have an awesome day.